In life, betrayal usually destroys people. But for one man, it did something very different. It ignited a fire that would turn his darkest moment into the foundation of a billion-dollar empire. This is the story of how one act of treachery didn't break him, it transformed him. This is the billion-dollar comeback. It begins with a dream, a vision, a relentless drive, and ends with a lesson the world rarely sees. Some of the greatest successes are born from the ashes of betrayal. Before the betrayal, before the empire, he was just another hungry dreamer in a crowded world. He wasn't born rich. He didn't have powerful friends. What he had was an idea he believed in so deeply that he poured every last piece of himself into it. Day after day, night after night, he worked. Late nights blurred into early mornings. Pizza boxes piled up. Coffee cups overflowed. But in the glow of his laptop, he saw possibilities the world could not yet imagine. His company was small, but it was growing fast. Investors were calling. Customers were excited. Momentum was real. And beside him, through every milestone, was someone he believed was a brother. His business partner. The person he trusted more than anyone. Trust is the currency of every great partnership. But sometimes, trust is the blade they use to cut you deepest. When they first met, their chemistry was instant. One was the visionary. The other, the strategist. Together, they felt unstoppable. They spent nights brainstorming, filling walls with sticky notes, testing ideas, pitching to small clients, and celebrating even the smallest victories. Every handshake felt like a step toward greatness. Their startup began attracting real attention. Revenue started climbing. Journalists requested interviews. Investors invited them for dinners. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was finally stepping into the future he'd always imagined. And yet, something felt wrong. Small things. Strange things. A missing email. A meeting he wasn't invited to. Quiet conversations that suddenly stopped when he walked in. He ignored them. Because trust blinds us long before betrayal opens our eyes. It happened on a Thursday night. The kind of night where the world feels quiet, and danger feels loud. He stayed late at the office, finishing a strategy deck for a major investor. And that's when he noticed it, a folder on his partner's desk. A folder that wasn't supposed to exist. Inside it were contracts, secret agreements, plans for a company restructuring. That completely cut him out. The partner he trusted, the friend he believed in, had sold him out. Meetings he wasn't invited to weren't accidents. They were plans. Deals made behind his back. A silent coup. A quiet removal. And just like that, everything he'd built was stolen from him. The betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't come with warning. It was quiet, precise, and devastating. In the flicker of a fluorescent light, he realized that his dream was no longer his own. The next day, the betrayal became official. Surrounded by lawyers and executives he once called allies, he was informed that he no longer held any meaningful control of the company. The board, manipulated by his partner, voted him out. Years of sacrifice, erased in minutes. He walked out of that building with nothing. No salary. No shares. No future. Just the weight of a world that felt like it had collapsed on top of him. Some people break in moments like this. Some never recover. But some are born in the fire. For weeks, he disappeared from the world. Depression hit hard. Nights felt heavy. Days felt meaningless. He questioned everything, his judgment, his dreams, his own worth. He had lost his company. But more painfully, he had lost his belief in people. The betrayal changed him. It stripped away every illusion, every naive optimism. And in the silence of that low point, a new voice began to speak. Not the voice of fear, but the voice of anger. And anger, when controlled, becomes fuel. One night, something shifted. He realized something powerful. His partner may have taken the company, but he hadn't taken the vision. The idea was still his. The skills were still his. And the fire was still burning. He did the one thing every defeated man must do: he stood back up. And he made a decision. If they wanted him gone, he would build something they could never outrun. The comeback had begun. He spent weeks planning, designing, and analyzing every flaw in his old company. Every misstep his partner made became a lesson. Every weakness became an opportunity. And slowly, the skeleton of a new empire began to take shape. But he didn't return as the same man. The betrayal sharpened him, matured him, taught him the most important business lesson there is. Trust yourself more than you trust anyone else. He rebuilt carefully, quietly, strategically. He learned what his old company never allowed him to see: how to be ruthless with his goals, how to build without depending on the wrong people, how to create something clean and uncorrupted. He wasn't building a company anymore. He was building a weapon. Then came the idea that changed everything. A new concept, bigger, smarter, more ambitious than his first startup. It wasn't revenge. It was evolution. His second company wasn't just competition. It was superior in every way. Efficient where the first was bloated. Visionary where the first was outdated. Built with precision, while the first had been built with ego. This time, he wasn't sharing the wheel with anyone. Every line of code, every business decision, every marketing strategy was meticulously designed to be untouchable. The market responded instantly. Customers loved the product. Investors took notice. Revenue grew faster than he expected. The company that was built from betrayal was now rising like a phoenix. But the most satisfying part wasn't the profits. It was the moment his old partner finally realized the truth. The man he tried to bury was back. The old partner panicked. He tried to block deals, pressure investors, even sabotage early contracts. But it was too late. You can fight a rival. You can't stop a comeback fueled by purpose. The world saw the difference. One company was built on politics. The other, on pure drive. And in business, authenticity always wins. A year later, his company wasn't just successful. It was dominating the industry. Customers switched sides. Investors pulled money from the old firm. The partner who betrayed him watched helplessly as everything he stole crumbled. Every contract he thought he controlled slipped away. Every advantage he assumed was his evaporated. And the man he tried to destroy? He had become untouchable. From a small apartment, coding alone at night, he had built an empire no one could ignore. The company that rose from betrayal was now the standard others chased, but could never catch. This wasn't luck. This wasn't chance. This was deliberate, calculated, relentless. Then came the moment everyone remembers. A valuation that pushed his company over $1 billion. He had officially joined the ranks of the world's billionaires. But the numbers didn't matter. They never had. What mattered was the lesson. The betrayal didn't break him. It built him. It forced him to evolve, to sharpen, to rise to a level even he didn't know he was capable of. Every late night, every tear, every moment of doubt had been necessary. The fire of betrayal had forged him into someone stronger, smarter, more resilient. And now, the world would see the results. Success isn't just about wealth. It's about transformation. And transformation is born from the challenges no one else sees. Meanwhile, the partner who had betrayed him was crumbling. Deals fell through. Investors pulled out. The reputation he had built on lies and manipulation evaporated like mist under the sun. He had stolen a dream, but he could not steal talent. He could not steal determination. And he certainly could not steal destiny. The world watched silently as the man who tried to ruin another's life faced the consequences of his greed. His empire, once thought untouchable, began to disintegrate, a stark reminder that success built on betrayal is always fragile. Ironically, in trying to destroy the dreamer, he had created a legend. Recognition came swiftly. Media outlets called. Magazines wanted interviews. Business leaders sought his advice. The story of the comeback resonated. But Daniel didn't speak of revenge. He spoke of resilience, of lessons learned in the darkness, of the strength found in solitude. Sometimes, he said in one interview, the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing in your life. The world wasn't celebrating his wealth. They were celebrating his journey. His courage. His refusal to be defeated. And in that recognition, he found peace. He didn't stop at wealth. He wanted to ensure others didn't suffer the same way. He mentored young entrepreneurs. Shared his story. Helped others rebuild after failures and setbacks. His journey became a blueprint for those lost in the dark moments of life. He taught that betrayal, loss, and failure are not the end. They are lessons in disguise. Tests that reveal what a person is truly made of. And for those willing to endure, the rewards can be greater than anything imagined. Daniel had become more than a billionaire. He had become a guide, a symbol, a living testament to resilience. On a quiet evening, standing atop a rooftop overlooking the city, Daniel reflected on everything that had happened. Every betrayal. Every setback. Every sleepless night. He smiled. Not for the money. Not for the title. But for the journey. For the strength forged in fire. For the knowledge that he had transformed pain into power, betrayal into opportunity, darkness into light. He had been betrayed, but reborn. Destroyed, but rebuilt. Forgotten, but returned as a legend. And this is how one betrayal sparked a billion-dollar comeback. Because sometimes, the people who try to break you are the very ones who create the spark that makes you unstoppable. Even after reaching $1 billion valuation, Daniel didn't stop. The journey had taught him a lesson that success alone could never teach. Resilience is more powerful than luck, more reliable than talent, and more enduring than wealth. He poured himself into building a culture of perseverance. Every employee, every team member, was reminded that setbacks were not failures, they were opportunities. That one act of betrayal, once a source of pain, had become a guiding force for the company's philosophy. Resilience, he realized, was contagious. And when it spreads through an organization, it creates something unstoppable. Success wasn't just financial. It was mental. Every morning, Daniel reminded himself of the lessons carved into his soul by betrayal. He visualized challenges before they happened. He rehearsed solutions. He reflected on every decision, weighing consequences with precision. His mind had become his greatest asset, honed sharper than any business strategy, more powerful than any competitor's advantage. And in that discipline, he found clarity, purpose, and an unshakable confidence that the world could throw anything at him, and he would stand taller. Daniel knew he could not climb higher alone. He began to build a team that shared his vision, a team that could endure the storms he had weathered. Each new hire was chosen not only for skill, but for character. For resilience. For grit. They studied his journey, learned from the mistakes he had survived, and absorbed the lessons of betrayal as fuel for ambition. Slowly, the company became more than an organization, it became a movement, a living testament to the power of perseverance, intelligence, and loyalty. With the right people beside him, no obstacle seemed insurmountable. The company that had risen from betrayal was no longer just a local powerhouse. It was global. Offices in new continents, partnerships with international leaders, and products changing industries around the world. Daniel's vision had scaled beyond a single city, beyond even a single country. Every deal, every expansion, carried the lesson that betrayal could not stop a man who refused to break. It was no longer just his comeback, it was a beacon for dreamers everywhere. Every new market conquered, every new opportunity seized. Validated a simple truth: those who rise from adversity carry the power to inspire millions. At the height of his success, Daniel took moments to reflect. Not on the billions, not on the fame, not even on the power. He reflected on the journey, on the nights of despair, the long hours of isolation, the sting of betrayal. He realized something profound: it was never about defeating his partner. It was about defeating doubt, fear, and limitation within himself. It was about proving that no one else could define his worth. In the silence of dawn, he understood that every setback, every pain, every betrayal had been a gift in disguise. A map leading him to a life more extraordinary than he could have imagined. Daniel's journey became more than a story of wealth. It became a story of hope, of perseverance, of vision. He traveled the world, speaking to students, mentoring entrepreneurs, and sharing his story of betrayal turned triumph. He inspired a generation to see setbacks not as the end, but as a starting point. To see betrayal not as defeat, but as fuel for greatness. To see pain not as weakness, but as a teacher. And in every life he touched, Daniel's legacy began to take root, a reminder that greatness often rises from the darkest trials. The story of Daniel is proof that one act of betrayal can become the spark for unimaginable success. That the people who try to break you can unknowingly build the fire that fuels your rise. That despair can be transformed into power, and pain into purpose. This story isn't just about wealth. It's about resilience, vision, and the courage to rise again when the world says you can't. If you've ever been betrayed, remember, the fire you feel isn't the end. It's the beginning of your greatest chapter. Betrayed, but reborn. Destroyed, but rebuilt. Forgotten, but returned as a legend. This is how one betrayal sparked a billion-dollar comeback. And the lesson is clear: never let anyone else define your destiny. Rise. Rebuild. And let your fire burn brighter than ever. If this story inspired you, subscribe to Antef Life Tales and tune in for more incredible journeys of triumph, resilience, and the people who refuse to quit.